Right.
It's going in the video.
Alright, so welcome back everybody. As you can see in the background, I do have the monitor chassis out of the Tekken cabinet, and so remember the last video, we just didn't have any monitor. We played it blind, we just didn't have any video out of the monitor. And so I actually, through some research, figured out, number one, what chassis I'm working with. So actually found a very useful technical document on it. I guess it's an instruction manual that actually came from Wells Gardner. I don't really know what you call it, but it did give me some, number one, it gave me a nice wiring schematic, which also I have for my bulb test here momentarily, which I'll talk about. And it gave me some clues where to go, although it would have been something I was going to do anyway with my experience within the Neo unit that was in the Daytona. I do have the chassis out here, and the one thing I will say is that while everyone loves these chassis so much, I have a K7000 unit, by the way. It's a Wells Gardner K7000 a monitor chassis. It's definitely not nearly as engineered, or I guess over-engineered as the Neo. Alright everyone, so welcome back. As you can see, we have the chassis, okay, it's sitting outside of the arcade, and we've got some replacement parts to go ahead and see if we can breathe some life into this thing. Now, I'm not going to lie, unfortunately I don't have some of the footage from me going and troubleshooting some of this, because the last time I went to go do this, I didn't bring my extra batteries, and the camera died on me. But to kind of give you a recap, so what we've got here is a Wells Gardner K7000 series monitor chassis. If I remember correctly, it's the 27K 7921. Hold on a sec, I can tell you. It's the 27K 7391. What I've learned is that, so these Wells Gardner chassis, they were all 19-inch chassis, and then they've been modified for them to go ahead and work on different size monitors. And so the one thing right away I noticed is that I have this extra board, and what this is called is a pincushion board, and this basically helps provide the extra width so you can actually make this thing output to a 27-inch monitor. Some other odds and ends changed, like the width cap, which is this gigantic thing right here, and I have a replacement for it because this one looks pretty toasted, although it does go ahead and actually tests out okay. And some other odds and ends along with the cap kit, which I actually went ahead and got from, I think it was arcadeup.com, which is out of Georgia, but I'll double check that and I'll put it in the bottom. And then some other odds and ends. But anyway, so this 7000 series, it's great because you can find a lot of parts for it. The problem is that the documentation is okay at best, especially because they put them in anything from 19-inch monitors to 20. Do 24-inch monitors exist? Because I've definitely read that, but I know 25, 27s, and even some smaller, like some 15s and 13s. And so trying to find information on the 27s was a challenge, but I did figure out at least as much as I could. But so troubleshooting this, and again, I don't have any video, but you can see I've got things strewn about everywhere. As I tried the bulb test, and so I got my bulb right here, and I blew a fuse. And I think I got video of that. I can't remember. But so I blew a fuse, and so right away I'm like, all right, so I've got some kind of voltage draw, at least more than I should. And I went through and tested, I checked on forums, and I realized that the rectifier portion of the power circuit was bad. There's actually 4 diodes that go ahead and take the AC in and then basically produce DC, and it's D19, D20, D21, and D22. And yes, I'm literally staring at the board because they're right here. And one of them tested open entirely. One of them tested way off. The other one tested way off, and one just was kind of okay. It was actually functional, but not great. And so from there, I went ahead and I took a look, and I actually removed the voltage regulator. And so the voltage regulator in this thing, for the 25 and 27 inch monitors, they use a 130 fixed volt voltage regulator. I think it's like the STR 3130. And so if this had been like 5-10 years ago, it might have been hard to find one because there was a whole bunch of reprinted ones, but now apparently the ones that are out there are good. So I tested that, and that tested bad. And then I actually had the hot out, the horizontal output transistor, and I had that out so I could go ahead and solder in my bulb test, and I tested that, and that was bad. So I have a feeling that this thing is a number of different things. I have a feeling that the hot probably was on its way out anyway, and then once the rectifier portion of the power circuit just kind of went ahead and, you know, shit the bed, that killed the voltage regulator, which then went ahead and actually killed the hot. It's actually very similar to what I had in the Neo, other than the DC rectifier being bad. That was still good. So I went ahead and bought some new parts. I'm going to replace the diodes that were in this board, which were IN 4005s, or at least equivalents to that with IN 4007s. These are just rated for a higher current, so they should last longer. From there, I have a new voltage regulator, which I also got from Arcade. It was an Arcade 1-Up or Arcade Up, which is right here, along with my B+, my P+ filter cap, cap kit. From here I have a new hot. Now I went with an NTE equivalent, mainly due to the fact that they were the same price, but I got this a lot quicker than I thought that I was going to get other parts. And it's an NTE 2302. And so this will replace the hot. Also came with a little, what I believe to be mica, that's what it says, but it's just a plastic shield that goes between the heatsink of the transistor itself, along with the heatsink on the board. Just that way I don't have any current flow back and forth and kill it. I also have, in this case, the width cap, and so I'll talk about these once I kind of get rolling, but I have those as a replacement. I also have some replacements for C36 and C69, which, depending on your board, is what's called the critical failure cap area. Some have what they call the cal capacitor, which is a giant capacitor. It's got 4 legs. This didn't have 2 capacitors, and so these are going to be at least replacements that I actually got from Arcade 1-Up, or this is what they suggested. I actually bought most of my electronics from Arrow.com, which was suggested from somebody on the K-Love. I think it was Kev's Arcade, so thank you for that suggestion, because everything got here super quick, and everything's really good high quality. Or at least it seems it anyway. It tested out all right, and I'm assuming it's going to work. But let's go ahead, number one, let's get some of these parts soldered back in. I'm going to start with the diodes, and luckily the board, I can still see how they get soldered in, because remember, diodes, the purpose of them is to rectify AC to DC, so they're basically a check valve, so they have a way they have to go in. So I'm going to start with that, work to my voltage regulator, and then from there I'm also going to go with my caps, and then I'm going to run a bulb test and see if I get the correct voltage. I'm hoping that I do, because then that means I'm one step closer to getting the monitor functioning. I'm hoping I can get that done today. If not, it'll just be a continuation. I'll finish this video up and go from there. So without further ado, we'll start soldering. I'll fast forward this. If I have any commentaries that go along, you'll hear it. All right, so the one thing I'm going to do, instead of doing this right with the cap kit, and so this was not what I did when I did the Neo unit in the Daytona, but I'm going to replace the filter cap as a part of the power circuit, because just because we're dealing with power issues, I might as well just go and replace it. Now, the one thing I will tell you that in here is a Nippon cap, And most of, if not all, the caps that I have are Nichicon caps, at least the electrolytic ones for my kit. This one that I bought separate, I don't know what the company is. It says KXJ on it. It's probably not great quality, so I'm going to replace this and probably buy something different. But for at least the time being, this tests good, so I'm going to put this inside just because it's new, and then hoping that things work out as we go along and try to get power, at least that 130 volts we're supposed to get for B+ voltage. So, in case you're wondering why I was doing that, that's why I'm doing it. All right, so we have the new diodes in. We have the new B+ filter cap in. We have we have the C8, C39 caps in. We have the new filter cap in. I don't know if that necessarily matters if the hot's not in, but regardless. I don't have the hot back in because I have it connected to my bulb, but I do have the voltage regulator in, and it's hard to see back here, but I'll make sure I get a picture of it. I'll show it right here, of how this is all set up. And so we'll see if I blow a fuse again. If I do, obviously I've got more to think about. Probably more parts to buy. Probably another voltage regulator to buy as well. But so we'll go ahead and see if we get a bulb once I flip the switch on. I have this plugged into the isolation transformer, which is then plugged into this. So as long as I flip this switch, we'll see what happens. Here we go. That's a good sign. We have 123 volts. That's not a good sign. All right, so the new voltage regulator came in. I actually have the old one in this bag. I went ahead earlier off camera and just desoldered and resoldered since you kind of already saw that happening. I didn't test it yet. I'm going to make the assumption that the light is going to turn on, as you see here. I have it hooked up with my voltmeter to check what kind of voltage I get. I will say right off the bat, and I did take a picture of the difference between them, so I'll show that right here, is that number one, it's got a number post, or I guess after the STR3130, which I don't know if that made a difference, but the legs were different length. And so I'm like, okay, so it's different, so maybe. So I'm hoping I get the correct voltage out of this thing. If I don't, I have to go through and, I guess, troubleshoot this a little bit more and figure out what's going on. But if I get the voltage, or at least close to the voltage I need to get, like for example, the Neneo and the Daytona, it's supposed to be 193, I think is B+, and I'm like 193.6 or 193.4. It's the best I could get it tuned in. So if this is close, we're gonna call it good, get everything back together, and actually test it out with the monitor. So I'm gonna give it a shot, see if the light turns on. So light turns on, as you can see. Voltage is 129.6, 129.7. So clearly this voltage regulator was a rebranded one. So look, I don't blame anybody for that. I know that that's been a thing, but you know, it sucks me being the consumer. So if you're working on these, you might want to go ahead and buy two, maybe from two different places, just so you know that you have one hopefully that does work. I do have to go ahead and get my bulb, my bulb tester desoldered. I have to get the hot resoldered in, and then from there, we're good to go and just get this thing back on the tube. Now it's going to be interesting because I'm not going to put it back in there. Maybe I will. I have to decide yet. But let's get the hot back in, let's get rolling, and we'll go ahead and test it out. All right, so before I actually move any further, I do want to go ahead and talk about the hot. The replacement that I bought is an NTE 2302, an equivalent that goes in here. It escapes me what the hot is actually by default, so it is what it is. I'll list it down here. But so the one thing I do want to talk about is what do you do if you buy a replacement transistor that does not come, in this case, with a thermal insulator. I guess it's really not a thermal insulator, it's more like a conductive insulator. This is actually a mica sleeve that came with this. But so what do you do if you don't have one? You can buy these, and it's relatively cheap. But the one thing I think what scares me, and I actually had this issue with the Daytona, is that they do go ahead, and even this one's starting to crack, even though it's new, and eventually they'll fail. And if you aren't careful, they will go ahead and kind of slip out of place. Now the ones that I had on here are actually stuck in place with thermal compound, but that's not always a fail-safe. And so the one thing I think that works really well, I have this, and really what this is just nothing more than Kapton tape. I actually have this for use with 3D printers, and so what it does is it's supposed to allow, in this case, heat to dissipate more evenly, so that you can go ahead and not only provide a different surface for your print to actually stick to, but it also goes ahead and helps keep heat relatively even if you have a heat bed or a heated print bed that isn't fully, what is the word I'm looking for? It's just not even across the board. This stuff works great, and that's what I'm going to use because I don't want to have the issue where this mica sleeve comes off. So as you see, I just went ahead and flipped it off and lost it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, fit this in place, add some thermal paste, put this in, get it soldered in, and then I think this thing's good to go. So I'm not going to bore you with this. I literally cut it so it fits, and I put probably 2 layers in, and then I go from there. So, all right, so everything's back together. At least at this point, to actually make this thing functional. I don't have the cap kit in yet. I'm going to do that after I test this. I tend not to shotgun parts in all at the same time unless they test bad, because you just never know if you're the cause of an issue or if it's something you fixed and it broke something else. So considering that the bulb tested the hot out, went ahead and showed me good voltage, I'm going to assume once the new hot goes in, that I can plug this back into the monitor and I should get a picture, and then from there I can do my cap kit, get everything back together, get it back in, and then at least call this part of the project quote-unquote finalized. So I'm going to go ahead and get working on that, get everything kind of organized so I can still do this on the bench and get that in the picture, get it all tested, and we'll see what happens. All right, so we've got everything set up. I have the power supply set up on the board inside. We're going to turn that one on first. We're going to hear the good morning thing. Then from there, we're going to go ahead, we're going to turn the CRT on, and we'll see if we get any picture, and hopefully no smoke or anything else like that. So without further ado, let's try it. Okay, so we have that. Moment of truth. All right, guys, you ready? It looks terrible.
Game over.
So it looks awful.
Wait, no, it's not.
So there's definitely way too much color.
No, it's fine.
Oh,
That's great.
Can you fix that?
I can.
It's got a real 80s vibe.
Yeah, hold
Oh,
on.
yeah, it does.
His face went from. Alright, hold on.
Up,
Shaw.
there.
SHA.
There.
Shot 256.
SHA is apparently the god of this.
It gets cut off at the bottom. Is that a problem?
Yeah, hold on. Just, oh man. So we're getting a picture. I'm assuming you can see it in the camera. Yeah, looks like you can. Surprisingly, it doesn't look too bad. God, the graphics are such trash. That's pretty cool. That looks pretty good. I mean, what do you guys think? Think the picture looks decent?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's, you know, it's
Rage,
you can use
rage.
it, so.
Rage against the machine.
I mean, it's hard to tell because the resolution's so low,
What?
but it seems to be good. I love the CRT sound. Did everyone else hear it? Yeah,
Oh,
you mean
the
the high-pitched noise?
Yeah, I hate that.
I love it.
I've already got tinnitus.
It's nostalgic. So
You're one of these. He had like really long white hair.
I was like, come on, leave me alone. Other than that, which I'll have to figure out exactly what's up with that. But it still looks like.
When you run the magnet over the CRT. Right. It's going in the video.
Well, definitely, but I don't like the fact that it just turned off.
Like, you could have just touched something. Like, Benfield is a magnet.
That definitely hurt.
Kill you.
Dude, I definitely felt it like all the way up my arm. Does my watch still work? My watch still works.
That's good.
Alright, so hold on. Nope. Yes!
Benfield dies once.
Nope. Yes! Great success!
I really hope we have video of that. I really hope we have it together. Just
Yes. F. Yes. Blows up in his face.
All right, everybody, so you can see we're that much closer to go ahead and calling this a wrap. I'm going to go ahead and actually cut the video at this point. As you can see, we do have video, even though we had a little bit of a, oh, what just happened when I shocked myself, trying to make some adjustments. But for the most part, everything seems to be good to go. Now, I'm not going to show you the cap kit, mainly due to the fact that it might take me twice as long as it took to do the Naneo, and it has half the amount of caps. And the reason being is that even though the majority of electrolytic caps are polarized, and they have to go in a specific way, there's no markings on this board that I can tell what's the anode and what's the cathode of each cap. So I'm going to have to do a cap at a time and really focus and pay attention where the anode, where the cathode goes. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and ruin my currently working chassis. That's just with the K7000 series, at least what I have for the 27-inch monitor. But I have that, I have some cleaning to do, and then this thing is going to be good to go, at least for the time being. Anyway, thank you so much for dropping by. I hope you had some fun watching, learned a little bit. Feel free to leave some comments. If you have any specific questions, you can always ask me. But I would really check out some of the forums, the K-Law forums, and again, that link, I'm going to go ahead and post that up there. They were really, really helpful getting this thing and troubleshooting. But I guess I've lucked out. This is 2 for 2 for CRT chassis, 2 entirely different chassis, and I've went ahead and successfully brought them back to life. I don't know if I'll chance it too much, especially after shocking myself today, for the future, for the time being. But until next time, thank you so much. Please make sure you go ahead and you like, subscribe, and if you think anyone would be interested, please share my channel, share the link. And until next time, I'm going to go ahead and get back to work, and then so I can actually play a little bit before I get to the next step, which is the multi-key part.